Let's discuss the Insta360 X5 camera and the new Invisible Dive Case Pro. So many questions in my inbox about the Insta360 X5 and the few videos that we've recently produced in the Lot region of France, the cave diving videos. So I think it's time to just sit down a little bit and talk about Insta360's X line of cameras, and that's what we're going to do today. Very bland background, I'm aware, but that allows us to focus a little bit on the basics. I have in front of me an Insta360 X4 and X5, and then I have the respective housings for X4, X5, and a little bit of a premiere, the X5 Pro housing. Look at this bad boy. So let's talk about that a little bit. My very first use of the Insta360 360 cameras was the X3. I did a mine diving shoot and I simply didn't fully understand what these cameras truly were made for, so I just had them sitting on top of my regular camera and sort of capturing backup footage just in case. What a lot of people put an action camera for on their higher end camera, and that's how I used it, which is not the best use, I will admit. Yeah, you can still find that episode on this channel. Acceptable footage, but definitely nowhere near as good as what we're doing these days. For our last few episodes, we've shot a lot on the Insta360 X5, and whoa, I mean, I am serious when I say this camera is a beast. Now, I recognize that a lot of our videos get sponsored by Insta360, and so you would rightfully suspect me of course wanting to say nice things, but I also obviously wouldn't be using these tools if they weren't serving our cause, which is of course to bring super cool, unusual, difficult dive sites to you guys. Now, maybe a few specs on the Insta360 X5. It's a 360 camera, which means of course we have two sensors, one on each side. It shoots more than 180-degree field of view, and then it stitches that together. So you get a 360-degree recording of the environment in which you can then pinpoint the exact parts of the video that you want to use. You can get very creative with this. This one shoots at 8K 30 frames per second. Yeah, 8K is a lot, but of course remember each sensor does have to shoot sort of all the way around and then some, so that there is overlap. Sensors are 1/1.28 inches, so they're larger than in the previous camera. Again, larger sensor, more light sensitivity, and they've also added a pure video mode, which is new on the 360 cameras as well. In lower light environments, that's going to give your recordings a bit of a boost. You can watch full reviews of Insta360 X5 all over YouTube. They'll talk about the replaceable lenses, which I think is huge, especially if you're very much into outdoors and adventure and you're prone to maybe smashing or cracking your lenses. You can actually do it yourself, right? You can replace both lenses, so you don't have to send them in. The camera is not done for. But of course, we're a scuba diving channel, so we are equally interested in the housings. And the first and most immediately sort of funny detail to me is how this is the X4, this is the X5, how these housings are getting sort of larger over time. Now, there's a good reason for that. I think that originally, especially also for Insta360 themselves, their idea was we have to get these cameras in the hands of scuba divers, we have to get them underwater without adding too much bulk, right? So they're just going to make sort of the minimum necessary so that you can use them underwater. But of course, the further that that the water sits from your actual lens, the better of a shot you have at clear footage. And I think that's maybe one of the reasons that inspired the X5 housing to be a little bit larger. Yeah? But there is a new product and they just sent me this, and I'm sure when this video is out that there will be an option to pick up your own, and if so, I will put a link below so you can do the same. But this is the X5 Invisible Dive Case Pro. Yeah, so have a look at this. So it's a lot bigger, yeah, and there definitely have been some upgrades that have been made here, which it again depends a bit what you're looking to get out of your 360 camera. But in the case of the Pro housing, of course, very noticeable. Actually, the actual body cover is not larger at all. It looks very, 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 very similar. But it's of course the spheres, the domes that are sitting there the difference is huge, right? Which again, of course, puts the water a little bit further from the lens and enhances low light performance by a lot, creates a lot clearer footage as well. And so this is super new. I've only taken this out a little bit, but it's, yeah, the difference is huge. Another addition besides sort of the obvious very large domes is that they've inserted like a black divider in the middle. So I'll show you here. And that's actually smart. And it's so weird that I've never even thought, I mean, hypothetically you could do that yourself, I guess, but in there is indeed these like black sheets, and that of course is going to block a lot of the light coming from the other side and traveling through the sphere, because you are indeed working, the camera is working inside a sphere. And so you do, or you can get a bit of light spill, especially if you're like us and you work with a lot of different light sources. Sometimes it is a bit of a challenge to position your lights so that the camera doesn't constantly pick up a whole lot of flare. Now, if you're working with a 360 camera, there's flare from everywhere. Yeah, that's not their fault, that's we are putting lights. So by putting essentially a little flag, let's say, between the two sides of the sphere, you do block out a lot of that. So that's super, super useful. There was a time where I recommended everybody to, if you wanted to shoot nice, beautiful images, shoot it on an Ace Pro or an Ace Pro 2, and I would really only leave the X5 for sort of specialty shots. I still largely believe in that, but we have either just out or coming out, depends when you're watching this video, we have a video of a 3.2 kilometer cave dive where we did the whole dive on scooters. It was 1.6 kilometers in, 1.6 kilometers out, so it's a little over a mile in, a little over a mile out. There is no time to stop and place lights, etc., etc. There's no time to make beauty shots. And so the idea was, okay, the whole thing has to be one continuous shot somehow, and then reframed and edited. And that's of course where the 360 camera came in. Now, as I said earlier, if you want beauty shots and you want to shoot in darker environments, typically I find the Ace Pro 2, for instance, does a better job than the 360 cameras. So I was skeptical, but I was equally eager to try it out. And so we did. I actually mounted this on the nose of the scooter with the invisible selfie stick, with the idea of reframing the shot later and being able to see the diver in front of me, being able to see myself, being able to also see the cave. Essentially having literally that, a 360 camera as if they're a member of the team and they're flying through the cave with us, and then sort of controlling the eyes of the audience, of you afterwards, by reframing this. Now, whether or not you think that style is nice is maybe a separate argument, but the fact that that's technologically possible and the fact that the X5 is able to receive enough light and produce such a clear image. I mean, I've watched this on my 4K TV and it's really clear. I mean, it's incredible. I think that's crazy. So I would no longer say that I would only use the X5 for specialty shots. Of course, I'm not going to constantly dive with a DPV flying through caves and shoot all my stuff like that. But I think for certain cases where it's not always possible to stop and light the scene and set up shots, this is a crazy good solution. That brings us to the question, who is this for, right? And I'm going to maybe disregard the X4 simply because there is now a newer generation, being X5. If you're in the market to buy one of these, I think it makes sense to buy the latest generation so that at least you have the best possible processing power, triple AI chip, good battery, all that stuff. It just makes sense that you would be wanting the best technology that you can get in that moment. But it does bring us to the next question, maybe which housing should you get? Yeah, so you have the X5 housing and the X5 Pro housing. I still have to laugh a bit when I see it. It's, you know, in essence, I don't know why I find it so funny. I guess because of simply the progression of them getting larger. But I think in hindsight makes sense that they are so large. If you are, let's say, a casual traveler, maybe you're going snorkeling, maybe you want to be able to put something in your pocket, pull it out real quick. I think that the regular X5 invisible housing is still a great option, right? Especially because this still fits in a lot of pockets where this is starting to become a little bulkier. But if you're a content creator, if you're a little bit more serious about creating nice footage, and if you, especially I think if you're shooting in lower light environments, maybe a little deeper, maybe a little darker, maybe inside wrecks, maybe you're a cave diver, and you want to use a 360 solution, then I think that it's a no-brainer to go for the Pro housing, even though it's a little bit bigger. One tip I will give you, and it comes like that, at least in the package they sent me, with a, what I first thought was just another sort of handle, and I was like, oh, another one of those, but it's weighted. It's actually really heavy, and they do recommend that you use it because, of course, if you understand something about buoyancy, this is, of course, a relatively big volume, and it's not very heavy, so it's going to become quite positively buoyant. So using the weighted handle on that is going to counteract that and make it more or less neutral. So that's very thoughtful that they include that, I think, because I maybe wouldn't even have thought about it on the first go around, and it's not until I lifted it and I was like, oh, of course. And my second tip would be absolutely to use a protective pouch. This is like a nice little Insta360 neoprene, I think, pouch, because of course, yeah, bigger domes, more risk for scratching, especially in our case, things like cave and whatnot. And of course, you want to keep this scratch-free and dust-free, because any scratch, any dust that is then backlit is of course going to show up in your footage, and that's on you. So it's very important when not in use, I think, to make sure that you protect this even during the dive, right? If you're going to put it, not use it all the time. So that's a little bit my breakdown of these options, and it's again maybe not a tool for every dive, although if you must choose between an Ace Pro, an Ace Pro 2, an X5, and maybe you're not a super professional shooter, I think we're getting to that point where this can really do both and be as good as either or. So where maybe a year ago, I think there is an X4 tips and tricks video on this channel, I would have said, oh, pick your weapon, you really need both. I think that they're getting so good and so powerful and so good at stitching and so low light performant that where I thought this would become a specialty tool, I am now almost on every dive thinking, I wonder if there are crazy shots that I can't get any other way that I can use with my X5 in the Pro housing. I've put a lot of footage on here. These are all from episodes that have aired recently or will air soon. So definitely check those out if you want to see the full power of the X5 unlocked, if you want to see the full power of the invisible housing unlocked. That's all there. Remember that you can always subscribe to the DiveSAGA channel. That helps the channel a lot, of course, especially if you're into scuba diving, if you're into underwater filmmaking. I usually always highlight a little bit the process, but I figured I would make a dedicated video that highlights this a little bit more so that you understand a little bit better the features and the differences, especially with now the invisible housing and the invisible Pro housing. I will put a link below so you can pick up whatever you think you end up needing for your project. And definitely don't hesitate as well in the comments to put links to whatever you shoot. I'm always happy to see people shooting these things, and sometimes people ask me for advice and I do answer. If you send me footage, I'm happy to review it quickly and give a little bit of tips as well. Yeah. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.